I'll start with a little background about how, what the purpose of the book is, and then how it relates with our life. And we'll talk about one particular prayer that relates with our life. So among all the books in our sacred canon, I have found the most connection with the Bhagavad Gita. And the Gita is for me not just a book of wisdom. The Gita's, many of the Gita's verses are like close personal friends for me. And if you have a close friend, we love to spend time with them. And often when we spend time, we try to get to know more about the person. So not only have been reading the Bhagavad Gita along with different commentaries, but I've also been looking at how the Bhagavad Gita has been quoted and approached by our acharyas in other books also. Say, how does Srila Prabhupada quote the Bhagavad Gita in the Bhagavatam? How does Jiva Goswami quote the Bhagavad Gita in the Sandarbhas? So while I was doing that, I found that in the Mukundamala Stotra, which is a prayer by Kulashekar Maharaj, I found several verses which seem to be like prayers inspired by a verse of the Bhagavad Gita. What that meant is that these were, so for example, in the Bhagavad Gita 12.7, Krishna says that Teshamaham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. So Tesham aham samudharta. Those people I will deliver from the ocean of birth and death. Which people? Those who fix their mind on me. And there, Kulashekar Maharaj is taking almost the same thing and he's saying, Samsara sagara nimagna mananta deenam uddhar tumarasi hare purushottamosmi. So he's saying that this ocean of material existence is endless and very difficult to cross over. But it behooves you, O Lord, to rescue me from this ocean. Uddharatum arasi hare purushottamosmi. So why does it behoove you? Because he says that you have promised it, my Lord. So basically, there's a prayer by Kulashekar Maharaj, and it seems to be inspired directly by a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. And then, so that gave me an inspiration. I started composing prayers based on the Gita from the Gita verses. And then it struck me that the Gita's conception of God is much deeper than what we normally conceive of when we pray. Or deeper, you could say, different. And that also shapes the direction of the prayers that will come in our lives. So, the Gitas, I was talking about the conception of God itself is different. Now, often we talk about God as the provider of protection. And when we think as God as the provider of protection, then say we are having some trouble and we expect that God will protect us. Now we can differentiate with material and spiritual protection, but we expect protection. However, the Gita is not just assuring Arjuna that Krishna will protect. If God is a provider or protector, then what is the conception of the self? The conception of the self is that we will be the receiver of protection. Isn't it? That we will be the receiver of protection. While that is true, but what the Gita wants Arjuna to be is not just a receiver of protection, but the Gita wants Arjuna to be a provider of protection. Isn't it? Arjuna has to fight a war. And that war is to protect society. So, in that sense, the human is not conceived of as a passive recipient of protection. The human is conceived in the Gita as an active agent. So in one sense, well, we can conceive of God as the protector, but it's more of God as the commander. So commander means if there's an army, the army has a commander, and then there are soldiers in the army. There are warriors, there are generals in the army. And yes, the commander of the army will ensure that the soldiers are protected. But the soldiers are different from the civilians. The civilians receive protection, whereas the soldiers are meant to fight. Now, if the commander is dedicated to the protection of not just the citizens but also the soldiers, then it is that a soldier who is fighting, if a soldier is abducted, a soldier is held hostage, then the commander will make sure that the soldier is recovered. But the point is, the Gita's message is not that God is the hero and you watch how heroic God is. It's like God is the hero, and in his service, you can become a hero. The key difference between the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, among many differences, in Ramayana, Lord Ram is the hero. Of course, there is a fantastic cast of assistant heroes, you can say. Hanuman is sometimes, at least in the Sundarkand, Hanuman seems to steal the show from Ram. Isn't it so? So Ram is practically absent to the Sundarkand. And that's the most popular section of the Ramayana. But the point is still, Lord Ram is the hero. Now, that similar thing happens in the Bhagavatam. But in the Mahabharata, of which the Bhagavad Gita is a part, that is much more reflective of human reality. And human reality, our lived reality in the world, is that we face challenges in life, and it is not that God miraculously swoops down to intervene and protect us. But the God's protection comes. And just as Krishna's role in the Mahabharata war was in many ways a subtle role. So similarly, for us, Krishna's role in this world is often subtle. So when we pray based on the Bhagavad Gita, it's understanding what is the mood of Krishna there, and then what is the mood of Arjuna there. And understanding this enables us to play our part. So God as the protector is a different conception. It's an important conception. But God as the commander. It's God wants us to be a part of his plan. That's a very dynamic and empowering conception of both of the human-divine relationship and of bhakti in itself. And within that, of prayer. So prayer is so that Arjuna becomes a provider of protection. So we can say as parents, we may have to protect our children. If we are doctors, we want to treat our patients. If we are lawyers, we want to help our clients. We all have various roles to play. If we are trying to share spiritual wisdom, then we want to protect those who are coming to our talks from misconceptions that need to be overcome. So like that, we all have roles to play. And Krishna is wanting us to be an active agent, not just a passive recipient. So this is a fundamental shift in perspective. So those of you who have the book, let's look at the book. So I say, let me remember, did we read this prayer? That my life story is a part of your story. So in this section, what I have done is, I've taken the Gita's verses and presented them as English poetry, so that we can get more of a devotional feel for the verse. So let's recite the verse, for those of you comfortable. Tatah shvetair hayir yukte Mahati Syandane Sthitau Madhava Pandavaschaiva Divyau Shankau Pradadmatuhu. Then Krishna and Arjuna, standing tall on their chariot, white steeds and all, blew their conches loud and bright, a sound that shook the field with might. A sound that shook the field with might. So had you started reading this prayer? Had you started reading it? How much?
You read the translation.
The whole, all the entire. Okay. So here, the first part I mentioned is that my dear Lord, you are always with me on the chariot of the body, just as you were with Arjuna. So the Gita has a timeless theme being depicted. Life is like a battle, and our body is also like a chariot. So Krishna is with us, just like he was with Arjuna. And Krishna wants us to become a part of his plan. So let's try to understand this a little bit more now. So I'll talk about this in three terms. ACT, to act is the key theme of the Bhagavad Gita. So we'll talk about appreciate. Appreciate how the Gita's vision is for us. Then after that, we cultivate. And then finally, we transform. We appreciate what God wants us to do. We cultivate what is required for us to play that part. And then we transform. See, basically, our normal vision of life is that our normal story that we tell ourselves is, I am here in the world, and then some things happen to me, and some things are done by me. This is a very limiting story. Some things happen to me could be that, when I was growing up, I was traumatized by a bully in school, or I was unfavorably compared with a sibling, or this happened, that happened. And those incidents can scar us for life. And yes, it's possible. And then sometimes we may have had some big opportunities, but we did not take those opportunities. Maybe we could have taken a particular kind of career, but we chose another career. And then we may have those lifelong regrets. So basically, what happens is, about what has happened to us, we often have resentment. And about what we have done, often we have regrets. And in this way, our life story can become filled with negativity. This person did like that to me, and I made a mess over there. And now, often when these two are there is resentment about how others have dealt with us and regret about what we have done. Then it's very easy to sink into negativity. So what the Gita does is, it expands our conception of our life. Our life story is not just about what was done to us and what was done by us. Above us is Krishna. And in some mysterious way, what was done to us and what was done by us, both of these are parts of Krishna's plan. Everything is a part of Krishna's story. So the things that have happened to us are all God filtered. Now, God filtered does not mean that they are God intended. Not that everything that has happened is what God wanted it to happen. Krishna did not want Dushasan to disrobe Draupadi. Dushasan wanted to do it. But in some way, even that was incorporated by Krishna into his plan. So when we say, for example, when there is going back to the war metaphor, war is very much in the minds of people. There was the Operation Sindoor in India. Now there is the Israel-Iran going on. Ukraine-Russia has been going on for a long time. So war is right now there in people's consciousness. So we will take that metaphor today. When there is a war, the army may be guided by an expert commander who may have a very well thought out strategy. But even with the best thought out strategy, there are always unexpected elements that come in. And expertise means that even if, say, the opponents do something unexpected, or even if our team fails to do what is expected, still you improvise. And we improvise and make things work. So in India, we use the word jugaad. Now, there is a website online where you can propose words to be included in the dictionary. So now in the main, in the English dictionary, Webster or Oxford, some word like karma, dharma, yoga, even seva, they have been included now. So jugaad is also going to be included now. So Indians are known for doing jugaad. So jugaad is like a more, you could say, desi word, rasik word for improvisation. So we can do jugaad and Krishna can do the ultimate jugaad. So even if we make a mess of things, even if others make a mess of things, still Krishna keeps his plan going. That is the whole idea of jugaad, isn't it? Things are not the way they should be, but still we make things work. So there is, if we consider the concept of jugaad, I thought you don't think you came to hear about jugaad over here. But often, see, there are two things. There are resources and there are purposes. So the best is where the resources fit the purposes. That means, say, if we want to go from place A to place B, we have a car. And by the car, we go smoothly. So there's a resource which helps us to fulfill the purpose. But sometimes that resource doesn't work. Our car doesn't work. Then what do? We can panic. Oh, I will not be able to go. No, we can hire an Uber. We can ask a friend to give us a lift. We may decide, okay, can I go by public transport? So in one sense, the purpose, maybe, okay, I want to go to a particular place. That purpose is there. But to be resourceful means that we have options. We try to achieve the purpose through a variety of resources. If one resource does not work, let's try out another resource. So that projector, we couldn't make it work, this projector was there. So that means that sometimes one instrument, one tool, one resource does not work, but still we don't let our vision of the purpose be limited by the vision of the resources that we have. And so that means resources are important, but purposes are even more important. That means, say, if this is the purpose and this is the straight resource for the purpose, if this resource doesn't work, maybe there's a resource which goes like this. Maybe there's another resource which may not be the straightest way, but we have different resources which get us to the purpose. So like that, when Krishna works, so an expert leader can work with the resources that are available. We want a particular kind of bomb to use to blow up this enemy center. But then if that bomb is not working, that bomb got damaged during travel, what do you do? Okay, you have this bomb. You use that. If somebody is an expert surgeon, sometimes a particular device is not available. Now, ideally, everything that is required should be available. If something is not available, okay, let's see, what do we have? What can we work with it? So Krishna is like that. And in this case, we humans are the resources for Krishna. So we humans are the resources and Krishna has a plan. And Krishna can work through us even when we are imperfect resources. Even when what we do may not be the right thing. So I'll give an example to illustrate this point about. So what we are trying to appreciate over here is that Krishna has his story. Krishna has his plan. And our life is always a part of Krishna's story. So we could say this is Krishna's story, and then this is our story. So our story exists within Krishna's story. Now if we consider, say, that now Krishna's plan is that, say, this is the climax point. The climax point in the movie might be where a particular goal is achieved. Now in many movies, just defeating the villain is itself the climax point. But in others, it is more like getting a particular treasure, or say the hero and heroine uniting together. That might be the climax. And with respect to that climax, beating or defeating or destroying the villain is a side plot. That's not the main purpose. So for Krishna, killing the Kauravas was not the main purpose of the war. Establishing dharma was the purpose. And if the Kauravas were ready to live according to dharma, then there was no need to kill them. But they were not ready to do that. So that means that when Krishna has his purpose, now we may go along a straight path toward that purpose. Sometimes we may take a zigzag path to that purpose. Now somebody may not play any part in that purpose. Somebody may oppose that. Now Krishna, now here the circle we have shown is a finite circle. Krishna's plan is like an infinite circle. So nobody is ever thrown out of Krishna's plan. So even if somebody is, for example, killed, they are still souls. And in their future life, they will still have opportunities. So the idea is that we may take a particular turn in our life, but we are never, there is no turn which is fatal. There is no turn which is going to ruin our life forever. So when we want to appreciate Krishna's plan for us, that is, let's consider the example of GPS. Now what is GPS? Yes, it is God's positioning system. So now, if we consider God's positioning system, what does that mean? Say if GPS told us we are going for a particular, GPS told us turn right, and we turn left, what does GPS do? Does the GPS say, you didn't obey me, get lost and stay lost? No, GPS does not do that. GPS actually reroutes. And even if we take 25 wrong turns, still GPS can keep rerouting. Now, of course, if we follow the straight route that GPS is giving us properly, we'll get to the destination faster. Now, if we keep taking wrong turns, we can still keep rerouting, but every wrong turn will delay our getting to the destination. So, if you consider the GPS metaphor, again, the point I am making over here is that we are active agents in God's plan. So, we have to make choices, and our choices contribute. So, if we are driving, in one sense, we are in charge. We are making the choices. The whole system is set up by Krishna, and in one sense, no matter how many wrong turns we take, the whole territory is mapped out by GPS. So from wherever we go, we can turn back. So when we say everything is God filtered, that means that everything is within that divine GPS. Even the worst options taken by someone are within the divine GPS. But those worst options, so our choices, say if we consider, we'll later talk about what wrong choices means, but our wrong choices if we consider. So there's two extremes to look at them. One is the wrong choices, they don't matter at all. They're inconsequential. Now very few people think like that because we are often hit by the consequences of our choices. But people say, chalta hai, kuch nahi hota hai. Everything is okay. But choices do have consequences. One extreme is to consider them inconsequential, but the other is to consider them fatal. Oh, I made this choice and therefore my life is ruined. No. My relationship with Krishna is ruined, my bhakti is ruined, everything is ruined. So no wrong choice is fatal. And if we understand this, then we will become cautious about the choices we'll make. But at the same time, we will also be confident. See, when we are take the metaphor of the GPS, while we are following the GPS, we have to have confidence that the GPS will guide me properly. Isn't it? Without the confidence, we will not be able to function. But at the same time, confidence alone is not enough. We also have to be cautious. Sometimes two lanes seem to be very close, and on GPS may not be clear, okay, should I be going here or here? Then we have to be cautious, to be carefully evaluating. So like that, a devotee has utsahan, nishchayat, dhairyat. So we consider these three components. The utsaha is our enthusiasm. I have a part to play. The nishchayat is the confidence that Krishna is in charge. Krishna has a plan for my life. And dhairyat is the patience. We'll talk about it as we move forward. That how do we participate in Krishna's plan for us? How do we ensure that our story is a harmonious part of Krishna's story? These are three components I'm going to talk about. So the appreciate part is what will give us enthusiasm. Yes, it'll give me energy that whatever I am doing is a part of Krishna's plan. That when I am going by GPS, that there is a plan. Now, if we consider that we need to be cautious, we need to be confident. At the same time, we also need to be patient. Just because we are following GPS doesn't mean in 5 minutes we are going to reach the destination. Sometimes it may take 1 hour, sometimes it may take 2 hours. Yesterday evening, I was supposed to go for a program in Thane, and I started and the GPS was saying 2 hours. So I started at 5:30 and my program was at around 7:30. And I reached the program at 9:30 yesterday. So, so after 1 hour of travel, I didn't talk with the driver. I was busy making the phone calls. After 1 hour of driving, I looked at the GPS on his car and it said 3 hours. I said, we started, it was 2 hours. After 1 hour, it said 3 hours. So the devotees were very kind. They stayed on and they had prasad, they had kirtan, and we had a session. We finished at almost 11:30 yesterday. And my point is, sometimes that the result may not come immediately. Even when we are on the right track, even when we are careful and confident, we also need to be patient. So this is what we'll be discussing today about how we navigate the GPS. So the first point is that we appreciate that we have an active role to play. Now, even if we take wrong turns, Krishna still has a plan. So the two things, Krishna's plan will go on and Krishna's plan for us will also go on. So Krishna's plan will go on. Let's try to understand this now. And Krishna went as the peace messenger. Now Krishna failed. Now we can say, can God fail? One of the names of Krishna is Satya Sankalpa. Whatever he desires happens. But Krishna's peace mission failed. So how could it fail? Actually, Krishna tells Vidura the previous night. Vidura says to Krishna, when he's staying at his place, Krishna, why have you come here? You know that Duryodhan is not going to listen to you. You know that Duryodhan is wicked. And I've even heard rumors that he plans to arrest you. And he says that I have already seen one dreadful dishonor happening in that assembly. And every day that memory causes me pain. If I have to see another dreadful dishonor, I will not be able to live with myself. What is he referring to? Yeah, Draupadi dishonor. And now we may say Krishna will not be arrested. But then just the attempt to arrest someone. Like somebody is a CEO of a company and the police come with handcuffs to arrest that person. Now, even if that person calls an attorney and prevents getting arrested, still the fact that the police came to arrest, that itself is a dishonor. So, Vidura is expressing his concern. And Krishna says that, oh Vidura, I know that Duryodhana is not going to listen to. But I want that the world should know that this war was caused not by the Pandavas, but by the Kauravas. So now, if you consider, that means Krishna has plan A and plan B. I was talking about being resourceful, like Jugad I was talking about earlier. So plan A is that Duryodhan listens and war is avoided. So that could have resolved the conflict. It's like a straight path. You could say a relatively straight path. But if that doesn't work, Krishna's plan B is that let the world see. And if you see, now Duryodhan acted with his own defiance, his arrogance. Now, what is his arrogance? He tried to arrest Krishna. So, say Russia-Ukraine negotiations are going on, peace negotiations, and say one party tries to arrest the other people. Now, that will lead only to the escalation of the war. They try to arrest, and even before arresting also, he rejected the peace proposal. He said, I will not give enough land to even put the tip of a needle through. Now, if that had been the age of social media, this would have been a viral Insta dialogue. Insta reel, wow, kya dialogue hai. Like nowadays, then in social media, they have like A roasted, B they say. You see the word roast? Roast means insult in a way that is very, very sarcastic, maybe very clever. So it might be a headline, Duryodhan roasted Krishna. But the point is, what is the underlying message over there? So the underlying message is, like say, we invite somebody for some ceremony, maybe a birthday ceremony, wedding ceremony, or some other ceremony at our home. And now that person doesn't want to come. Now, so they make an excuse. Now, they are making an excuse. We know that they are making an excuse. And they know that we know that they are making an excuse. But still, out of courtesy, they are making an excuse. If they say, even if I die, my dead body will never come to your ceremony. Now then, they are not just saying no to the invitation, they are kicking in the face of the inviter. So this is what Duryodhan did. Now Duryodhan acted out of his arrogance. But, so you could say that Duryodhan's action, it could be of cooperation. He could have cooperated with Krishna's plan. Or he could act out of defiance, arrogance, defiance. Now Krishna is so expert that this would have been his plan A. And this was his plan B. Now from the perspective of optics means how things are perceived. If we see, Duryodhan could not have done anything better for Krishna's plan. Isn't it? Like first of all, what he said and then what he did trying to arrest Krishna, that showed everyone that it was Duryodhan who was hell-bent on the war. So in that sense, Krishna's purpose was still fulfilled. And although Duryodhan acted out of arrogance, the more arrogance he acted out of, the better he played a part in Krishna's plan. Isn't it? So the point here is, Krishna's plan is very you could say multi-dimensional. Like sometimes you say that one person is playing checkers while the other person is playing chess. So one person is acting at one level, the other person is acting at a completely different level. So like that, Krishna is acting in his own ways. And so if the human beings cooperate, Krishna's plan will unfold in one way. If the human beings don't cooperate, Krishna's plan will unfold in another way. So this understanding, we appreciate that we are all active agents in Krishna's plan. Now we may not put ourselves in Duryodhan's position. We can put ourselves in the Pandavas' position. But the Pandavas were affected by Duryodhan's actions. Now we don't have to put somebody who's hurting us into Duryodhan's position right now. You don't have to equate that simplistically. But the point is, even if there was someone as terrible as Duryodhan in our life, that does not stop Krishna's plan from acting. And they may be like Duryodhan, they may act like in Duryodhan's way only, not in a reformed way. Still, Krishna's plan keeps functioning in our life. However, how it unfolds will be different. So, the first part, when I was going to talk about this ACT, appreciate that we are always a part of Krishna's plan. And this appreciation should lead to enthusiasm. Enthusiasm that let me keep doing my part properly. Now that may still leave us for the question, okay, what exactly is my part? And that's an important question. So, what is the acronym we're going to discuss? ACT. So, ACT. Now, C is cultivate. That means we cultivate our readiness. We cultivate our resourcefulness by which we can play our part in Krishna's plan. So, some people have this conception that God has a particular plan for my life. And if I make one wrong choice, then the plan is ruined. Then I am doomed. It's not like that. Now, Krishna has made each one of us an individual. And Krishna wants us to use our individuality. So, sometimes you may say, okay, our free will is the problem. No, our free will is not the problem. Our misuse of the free will is the problem. Many times when I'm traveling abroad, almost 6 to 7 months a year, I'm outside India. So outside India, there's a lot of concern among, say, Indians who are staying there about raising their children. Here also it is there. Everywhere it is there in one sense. But how to pass on our values, how to ensure that our children become good human beings, good devotees. So that's a natural concern. So now, life itself does not offer many easy choices. If you don't have children, if you have children, you may have headaches. If you don't have children, you may have heartaches. Isn't it? There's a sense of emptiness in life. So now sometimes when, say, parents are expressing a lot of concern and fear, maybe complain about the children, I tell them, would you like to replace your child with a perfectly obedient robot? Now with AI, we can get robots, isn't it? So one couple said, we would like to have a robot, but in addition, not replacement. So now, we want our children to listen to us. But that listening doesn't mean that we want them to be robots. Ultimately, whatever experience we have, whatever wisdom we have, we want to transmit it to them. And it's not that eternally we want them to be in a position where they have to listen to us all the time. It is that we want them to be trained in making healthy choices. Now, there's a time when parents need to step back and let the children make their choices. So it is not that now sometimes it can be that the parents want to lifelong control a child. But that's not a healthy parenting rule. So like that, if we as human parents, we don't want just robots who do what we want them to do. A robot does not love its master. The relationship between Krishna and us is a relationship of love. So Krishna does not want that the perfection of bhakti is not that he takes away our free will. It is that we have our free will and we use our free will wisely. So now when we are talking about cultivate, appreciate that God has a plan for us and cultivate the readiness to play our part. So when we talk about God's plan for us, this is not one narrow line. It is more like a broad direction. What Krishna wants for us is that we move in a broad direction. Now, what is that broad direction? That broad direction is that gradually we start, ultimately life in the universe is like a university. And while there are many, many lessons to learn in life, the most important lesson is to understand what really matters in life. No, in one sense, we could say that the broad direction is the education of regarding what really matters in life. Say a child may throw a huge tantrum if a toy is damaged. Now for that child, the toy matters. But if an adult starts throwing a tantrum like that, he says, don't be such a baby. Isn't it? You grow up. What really matters in life? So as we grow up, our understanding of what matters evolves. So in fact, so when we are, what Krishna wants ultimately from us, it's not that if you look after the Mahabharata war, after the Bhagavad Gita is spoken, it is not that Krishna is micro-controlling each choice of Arjuna. It's not that before shooting every arrow, Arjuna is asking Krishna, Krishna, can I shoot this arrow? Do I have your permission? Do I have your blessings? No, you are a warrior. Be your own warrior. Be your own person. So, it is that the overall purpose of his life, of his fighting was to assist Krishna in his plan. But each individual choice, it was directed toward that purpose. But it is not that it is controlled. Going back to the war metaphor, that it is not that the soldier is to ask the commander, should I shoot this arrow? Should I fight with this enemy or that enemy? No, once you are in the war, you are in the thick of it. Prabhupada would say we have to fly our own plane. We have to decide if the enemy fire is coming, which fire to dodge, which fire to tackle, when to press on, when to turn back. All those are individual decisions we have to take. In Vrindavan, when the gopis cook for Krishna, it is not that every day Krishna gives a menu and a recipe for each menu item and cook this food. No, the gopis know what Krishna likes broadly, and the gopis know what they are good at cooking. And then Krishna's mood is surprise me. So Krishna's mood is cook for me, and gopis cook for Krishna. So our individuality is not something that is meant to be rejected. Krishna wants us to use our individuality in his service. So it's a broad direction that we make good choices. Now, good choices, I'll explain what it means. But first is this point of broad direction. I talk 3 examples over here. First example was Arjuna in the war. Then I talk about the gopis cooking for Krishna. A third example is the Pandavas themselves. The Pandavas were themselves very different as individuals. They are all devotees, but each one of them is an individual. Now, in many ways, if you consider sometimes when you meet 2 siblings, sometimes two brothers or 2 sisters have become devotees, then you look at the siblings and sometimes you see what is the similarity, what is the difference between the siblings. So if you consider Yudhishthir and Bhima, it's difficult to think of 2 siblings who could be more different than each other. Yudhishthir was more like, both of them are Kshatriyas, but Yudhishthir is more like a Brahman Kshatriya. That means what? That he's more interested in philosophical wisdom. He's more interested in discussion and negotiation. He will bend backward to avoid a conflict. Now, Bhima was like a Kshatriya. Or you can call him a Kshatriya squared. He would be itching for a fight. And yet, both of them were serving Krishna. It was not that Yudhishthir had to become like Bhima or Bhima had to become like Yudhishthir. Now, if you consider the dynamics, every one of them could have had their insecurities. Arjuna could have felt, I am not as physically strong as Bhima. Or Bhima could have felt, I am not as good an archer as Arjuna, or I am not as wise as Yudhishthir. I am not as learned as Yudhishthir. Now Yudhishthir, so normally, especially if a warrior and leading an army, The traditional conception is very different from the modern one. The modern, since the mainly from the First World War, but slightly before that, since that time there's a separation between the political leaders and the military leaders. Napoleon Bonaparte was the last in the Western history, last king who himself fought. Afterwards, most of the kings, most of the heads of state, they don't fight. So they are in their own, if not ivory chambers, bunkers or whatever they are. So, but the point is, in the past, it was the warrior has to be on the front line. The king has to be in the front line. The king is expected to be the best fighter. So Yudhishthira could have had insecurity that I am supposed to be the king and both my brothers are actually better than me at fighting. Isn't it? So quite often, if our vision of life is only horizontal, that means our reference point is, okay, I am like this person like this. Then we will sooner or later be filled with insecurity. So if we are looking at our role only by comparing ourselves with others, then there'll always be insecurity, feeling of inferiority. Maybe I'm not good enough. But all of them understood that they have a part in Krishna's plan. So, so the point I was making till now is that, see, each one of us is an individual and our individuality is to be used in Krishna's service. So normally what happens for each one of us is that we look at ourselves through the eyes of others. Now this can be overt, that how do others evaluate me? Or it can be covert in the sense that we only compare ourselves with others. Now both can happen. So this is the social mirror. So the topic I'm discussing over here is how do we cultivate our role in Krishna's plan. And I'm talking about, first point I made is that Krishna's plan is not like a thin line. It's our individuality is meant to be used. But even while our individuality is to be used, okay, what role am I to play? So if we are going to look at ourselves only by comparing with others through the social mirror, then we will start feeling insecure. Now, there are two extremes. Either we have insecurity or we have ego. So insecurity is what? Oh, I am so useless that I have no part in God's plan. What can I do? I can't do anything. So our vision of ourselves, insecurity is, I am so useless, I can have no part in God's plan. But there are many moving stories where Krishna values, even the small squirrel, Lord Ram values. So it is that the Lord values even the smallest role that we are playing. And Draupadi offers just a small piece of her cloth to tie Krishna's finger when it is bleeding. Krishna remembers that. So what we do is never worthless. One side is we become insecure. The other side is we have ego. Now, ego means what? Insecurity is, oh, I can never be a part of Krishna's team. Ego is, Krishna is lucky to have me on his team. So, people who have a lot of ego, they like to serve God. Do you think people with ego like to serve God? They like to serve God as an advisor. So, ego means, I have a plan, I know Krishna, why are you not executing this plan? Now, I am the expert here, consult the expert. So, like Krishna is lucky to have me on his team. So, that's ego. And both of these dispositions will frustrate us. If we have insecurity, we will think, oh, I cannot do anything at all. In an army, there are many kinds of, the defense force, there are many kinds of soldiers required. Somebody might be a foot soldier, somebody might be a horse warrior, somebody, today's world, might be a tank warrior, somebody might be operating much heavier machinery. Nowadays, the drones and all those things are coming. Different. Is there some water here? So different people may play different roles. So we don't want insecurity, but we also don't want ego over there. And ego is, why is Krishna not listening to me? I have made a perfect plan. Why is my plan not working? Thank you. Thanks. So why is Krishna not listening to my plan? Why is my plan not working? So if we avoid both of these, in between is humility. So humility is mamaiv amsho jiva loke. I am a part and I can play my part. I can do. So ego is I can do everything. I know everything. Insecurity is I know nothing. I can do nothing. But humility is I am something and I can do some things. So the war is bigger than my capacity to fight, but I also have a part in the war. So let me do my part. So that is where humility comes into the picture. Humility is not passivity. Humility is not insecurity. Humility is not that we let everyone else walk over us. Humility is more that, I have my lane in which I'll walk and you walk in your lane. I have a part in Krishna's plan and you have a part in Krishna's plan. So when we are cultivating our role in Krishna's plan, what does it mean? Let's look back at this particular, we'll read one passage from the prayer book. So we want to cultivate our part in Krishna's plan. What's happening here? Do you have the book with you? There's one copy there. Can you use? Can we read would anyone like to read the third paragraph? Not the third, the fourth paragraph. Let this merciful, would anyone like to read that? Let this merciful integration. Yeah, let this remembrance, correct. Yeah.
Let this remembrance of your merciful integration of my life story into your plan be the guiding and guarding light for all my decisions. Let it be the guiding factor that pushes me forward even through difficult situations. Let it also be the guarding factor that keeps me away from the knee-jerk reactions that take me away from it.
Yes, thank you. So we want to avoid acting either out of ego or out of insecurity. So now the guiding factor is what? That we avoid feeling insecure. When Krishna is guiding us. Guarding is where we don't become overconfident, thinking that things have to work my way only. When we say God has a plan for us, that is very different from the idea that what I am doing right now is God's plan. Actually, none of us knows necessarily from moment basis what exactly is Krishna's plan for us. Some of the worst things in the world have been done by people who were super confident that they are doing God's plan. Terrorists who just go about killing people. They are sure that they are doing God's will. About 20-25 years ago, there was an American president. He said that, God told me that I should attack this country. And he said, therefore, if you are not for the war against terror, then you are for terror. Well, maybe life is not that simple. Maybe we are against terror. People can be against terror. But maybe is this particular war the best way to fight against terror? So you see, Srila Prabhupada had full confidence that Krishna wanted him to share Krishna Bhakti. That Krishna wanted him to spread Krishna consciousness. And yet, Prabhupada was so open that when an ordinary postman told him, Swamiji, you are writing magazines, but people will read and throw away magazines. If you write books, that will last for a longer time. Prabhupada did not go on an ego trip. I am a Uttam Adhikari, Mahabhagwat. Who do you think you are to advise me? I know what I am doing. Get lost. No, Prabhupada saw, yeah, this makes sense. This is a good plan. It's a good suggestion. He implemented it. So now actually it requires writing a magazine and writing a book. It requires a considerable mental shift because magazine is shorter articles, they're more contemporary articles. Book requires a deeper thought and planning. So Prabhupada was in one sense ready to shift his entire strategy based on some suggestion that came from a postman. Now Prabhupada saw this is not just a postman speaking, this is my spiritual master speaking. This is Krishna speaking. So that's why it's important that as devotees, when we have confidence that yes, Krishna has a plan for me, but that confidence not lead to arrogance. That confidence has to be coupled with so when I talked earlier about caution, careful, so that careful attitude comes through humility. Humility, if it makes us think, oh, I am so fallen that Krishna has no plan for me, that I cannot be a part of Krishna's plan, that is bad. But humility means that yes, I am confident Krishna has a part for me, but what exactly is the part? I have to keep learning constantly. By constant learning, I keep growing. So it is not that when Srila Prabhupada went to America, he had a hotline to Krishna. And Krishna was not telling him that, this person is not going to become a devotee. Don't spend time on this person. This person is going to become a very serious devotee. Spend time more on this person. No. See, it's amazing how Srila Prabhupada had this. If you look at Srila Prabhupada's life, there are both these aspects. There is certainty and there is uncertainty. So Prabhupada said with respect to certainty that there are temples and they are filled with devotees. Only time is separating us from them. So this is this an expression of certainty or uncertainty? Certainty. And yet, when Prabhupada landed in America, Prabhupada said, I didn't know whether to turn left or right. That's an expression of uncertainty. So, this is at a specific step level. Now, the word uncertainty, has a certain negative connotation. But for a devotee, what it is it leads to curiosity. Now, we may use the word curiosity only in an intellectual sense, but it's not just intellectual, it's like an openness of head and heart. That curiosity, athato brahma jigyasa, is not just starting aphorism. It is brahma jigyasa. Spiritual inquiry is something just constantly happening. Our conception of Brahma may change. Is there an ultimate reality? From there to what does that ultimate reality want me to do? How can I best serve in this situation? That's why along with that utsahat, there's an enthusiasm, but there is also, we have to be cautious. We are careful. We are confident, but we are also careful. Confidence comes from the concept of certainty, but there is also uncertainty. That's why they're careful. But careful doesn't mean fearful. Careful means that, okay, I need to make good choices. I need to keep learning. I need to keep growing. So we cultivate our part through a humble learning attitude, or we could say through humble curiosity. So that's the second part. We cultivate our part. What is our part in Krishna's plan? How? Through a humble curiosity. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So pranipatena is there. There is humility. But it's not just humility. See, only humility without curiosity will lead to passivity. It can lead to blind following. It can lead to fanaticism. So blind following means we just do whatever whoever is the authority figure is telling us to do. And if we are the authority figure, then we become fanatical. So it's humble curiosity. Okay, there is a plan for me. What exactly is the plan? Let me try to figure it out. And we take small steps. So that brings us to the last part, and then we'll have some question answers. So the acronym was ACT. So appreciate, cultivate, and last is transform. So once we are cultivating, okay, an understanding of what is it that I'm meant to do. So it is not that, as I said, it is one it's not that there's a fixed plan. It's more of a broad direction than a specific line or a specific lane. So the standard metaphor for this would be like from a mountain, a river goes to an ocean. So now, when the river is going to the ocean, there is one overarching purpose. The river has to get to the ocean. But different rivers may go in different ways. Some rivers may go in one way, some rivers may go in another way. And now if you consider the map of India, the Brahmaputra river, it goes practically all the way across China to Tibet primarily. And then suddenly there's almost like a 90 plus degree turn. But from there it goes down and finally it goes down to the Indian Ocean. So each river will have its own path. And the river has to keep moving toward the ocean, but the river has its own path. Now this river going toward the ocean, the Mayavadis use this metaphor for the idea of merging into the ocean. The devotees use it for the idea of flowing toward Krishna. The river is constantly flowing toward the ocean like that. Kunti Maharani says that, Tvai me ananya vishaya, matir madhupate sakrit, rattim udvatad adha, gange vaugham udanvati. Gange vaugham udanvati. That we use our capacity, that let this always keep flowing toward the ocean. Let my consciousness always keep flowing towards you. Now, how will the consciousness move toward Krishna? That can vary. So each one of this, how does the river decide, should I move this way, should I move this way, should I move that way? It depends on the kind of obstacle that I'm facing. And now some rivers flow may be strong enough that they can just flow through the obstacle. Some rivers flow may not be that strong, then they may have to move on the side. And sometimes they just have to keep eroding the side obstacle, and it may take a long time for it to move toward the ocean. Now some rivers may just dry out. The river of our consciousness is not going to dry out. It may take a long time to reach Krishna, but it will reach Krishna. So for us to transform, I'll conclude with 2 examples of this. Transform means that depending on what is our particular capacity, that when a river is moving toward the ocean, the river has a particular purpose to go toward the ocean, but how it will go will vary. So if we consider the example of Hanuman, now with respect to Hanuman, often he is envisioned as with folded hands, but in between the folded hands there is a gada. So the folded hands, they represent bhakti, and the gada, the mace, represents shakti. So actually we need both, that there is bhakti and there is shakti. So if we consider 4 quadrants accordingly, there is shakti but no bhakti, there is neither bhakti nor shakti, and there is bhakti but no shakti, and there is bhakti and shakti. So we can have 4 of these quadrants like this. So among these, which is the best quadrant to be in? Bhakti and Shakti. Yes, we could say this is the best quadrant. This is where we can be super effective. In fact, this is where Krishna is telling Arjuna at the end of the Gita, or rather Sanjay is making the prophecy, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruvani Tirmatir Mama. That where there is Krishna and where there is Arjuna, there will be glory, there will be victory, there will be morality, there will be opulence. So all these things are said. Now it's interesting, this verse raises a question that Why does Arjuna have to be mentioned over there at all? Isn't it? Wherever there is Krishna, there is victory, isn't it? Krishna is Lakshmi, is Narayan, is Lakshmipati. So wherever Krishna is, there will be Lakshmi, there will be fortune, and there will be victory. So why does it have to be mentioned Arjuna's name over there? That's why, going back to starting point, the point of the Gita is to not just tell us that Krishna is the ultimate hero. The point is to inspire us to join Krishna's team. That Krishna is the hero, and if we join Krishna's team, he will make us also a hero. So where there is Krishna and where there is Arjuna, there is victory. So the idea is that bhakti is, again, to complete this whole thing, bhakti is that Krishna has a plan. Shakti is that I use my capacity. The Shakti could be our physical strength, it could be our intellectual strength, it could be our social contacts, it could be various things that we may have. We use those to serve Krishna. So now, this theme that there is bhakti and there is Shakti. So we transform our approach. There are two distinct examples of, say, at the end, the typical example of surrender. Somebody is raising hands in dependence on Krishna. Who is the example of that? Draupadi. Now Draupadi, among her example of surrender, will fall in which quadrant among these four? At that particular time, she had no Shakti. So Draupadi, it's not that she never had any Shakti, but at that particular time, she did not have any Shakti. So Draupadi, her surrender is raising her hands in helplessness. Now Krishna also tells Arjuna to surrender. Mam ekam sharanam vraja. And Arjuna surrenders. Arjuna says, Karishye vachanam tava. I will do your will. But does Arjuna surrender by raising his arms? No. Arjuna surrenders by raising his arms. By raising his bow, the Gandiva. Yatra partho dhanurdharaha. He has picked up his bow. So Arjuna's surrender will fall in which category over here? Which quadrant? Bhakti and Shakti, 4th. Yes. So, now of course it is not that one person will stay necessarily in one quadrant all the time. That there could be times, say like later on in the Bhagavatam it is described that Arjuna's archery ability seemed to have deserted him. And his arrows could not even reach the target. Among the many ways in which a warrior can feel humiliated is that missing the target is one thing, but not the arrow not reaching the target itself. It's like the ultimate humiliation. So his ability deserted him. So, but at that time also, he stayed surrendered to Krishna. So basically for us, when we say transform means that we use our intelligence and we decide which quadrant do I fall in right. If I am in a particular situation where I can do something to change the situation, if I have the Shakti, then I do that. But if I don't have the Shakti, then I accept that situation. So basically here what happens is, here we accept God's will in this quadrant. And here we accept the responsibility to do God's will. Or rather our responsibility to do God's will. That it is, you remember I started by talking about what is happening to us and what is happening through us. So sometimes we just have no control over what is happening. So what is happening to us, we accept that this is happening, what is happening may be terrible, but there is some plan of Krishna through this. And I accept it. Now just because we cannot do something about changing the situation does not mean we can never do anything. Maybe we have to act in a different way. The Pandavas, in many ways, they had the hope that the conflict would be resolved, that the conflict would not escalate. And that's why they repeatedly tried to bend backwards. When Bhima was poisoned, Bhima wanted to come and beat Duryodhana up. So Yudhishthira said, no, let's not break our family apart. Maybe he's just insecure. Let's be careful and maybe he will calm down. But then they tried to burn him alive. Then after that also, when they came back, the partition of the kingdom was done. He said, let's accept it. Although the partition was very unfair, they were giving the wilderness, but they accepted it. So they try. Now, was it that all these decisions were wrong decisions? Now, maybe Bhima had beaten Duryodhana up right in the childhood itself. Maybe Duryodhana would not have done all these things. Who knows? Life is not meant to be wasted in doing endless postmortems. No, it is that we make particular decisions and we use our best. We have the best intention. We have the best intelligence. We have to make the decisions. Sometimes those work. Sometimes they don't work. So the Pandavas, rather than saying that they didn't have Shakti, they decided not to use that Shakti to confront at that particular time. But eventually, at one particular time, they decided we have to confront. Because the way we do God's will can vary from situation to situation. So, when Srila Prabhupada was in Jhansi, and he had started the League of Devotees at that time, and that didn't work out. Now, Prabhupada said, okay. Prabhupada had the legal documents by which he could have fought for that particular property. But Prabhupada decided, it's not worth it. These people are not very serious. This is not a very big city. He said, my spiritual master wanted centers in big cities. He just decided to leave. But when something happened, the owner of that land wanted to take the money and not give the land also. Prabhupada said, he will have to go over my dead body if he wants to steal Krishna's land. So, Prabhupada chose to be in which quadrant in the situation? 4. In Jhansi, he chose to be in quadrant 3. In Juhu, he chose to be in quadrant 4. So sometimes we may accept that, okay, this is happening. I don't want to get involved in this. This is not worth fighting for. But sometimes we say, this is eminently worth fighting for. So now, who is right, who is wrong? Two people in the same situations. One may decide, I want to fight, and that will be how I'll serve Krishna. Somebody will say, I don't want to fight. I want to do something else. I want to get involved in this. That is also a way to serve Krishna. So when you talking about transform is that our understanding of our Shakti and our understanding of our capacity to use our Shakti. Based on that, we work in our lives. So, I said again, one more practical example I'll give to illustrate this first. This is practically the most important point, that how we serve Krishna in our particular place. So life can often be very difficult. Many of you know that I have polio. So when I was about 1, I was taken by my mother to a clinic for getting the polio vaccine. But somehow there had been a power outage in that clinic the previous night, and neither the attendant nor the physician noticed that. So because of the power outage, the germs in the vaccine had increased quite a bit. And when the vaccine was given to me, instead of preventing polio, it ended up causing polio. Now, I don't remember any of this, but I have a relative who is one among the first Indians who went to America as immigrants in the 1970s, 1980s. They're not first Indians, but among the early Indians who went to America. So America is one of the most litigious countries in the world. I was in Los Angeles. I saw a big hoarding. The hoarding was just 3 words. Who hurt you? So these are called as ambulance chaser lawyers. They just, okay, this person hurt you. We'll settle things for you. So this uncle called my father and he said, should sue the doctor. Now my father is a very, very peaceful person. I've rarely seen him ever get angry. His favorite verse in the Bhagavad Gita is Sthita Prajna. So he told uncle that the Indian legal system is such that before the court case comes for hearing also, probably we'll grow old and aged. Now the polio is already there. What can we do about it? No, not that nothing can be done about it. I remember one of the defining statements for me was when I was about 2.5 or 3, and a distant relative had come to our home, and she was consoling my mother, saying, "Oh, it's so sad, your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. She said, whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. So in that particular situation, the Shakti to say fight against that particular medical negligence or whatever, that was not there. But it is not that be a passive. Yes, God has some plan. Maybe not at the physical level, but at the intellectual level. So I was in Florida a few years ago. I met one devotee. He's also a disciple of Radhanath Maharaj. He was telling me his story that when his wife was pregnant, there was some kind of emergency. So she took him to the hospital. He took her to the hospital. And the hospital made a mess of things while she was in the NICU. And when her baby was born, she had cerebral palsy and many other medical issues. And it was a clear case of medical negligence, not malpractice, but negligence. So then he is himself a disciple of, he's himself a son of a disciple of Prabhupada. So he wrote to Radhanath Maharaj, and then he called Maharaj also, and he asked him, Maharaj, this has happened. Now, should I accept this as my karma? Or should I sue the hospital? So Maharaj told him that, whatever has happened, you need to accept it. At the same time, you need to take responsibility for caring for your daughter. And if you can get any assistance in taking care of that responsibility, you seek that assistance. So now he sued the hospital, and because there's a clear case of medical negligence, so there's a fairly good settlement by which he has lifelong, at least financial support for the care of his daughter. Now that does not undo the damage. That means she is severely restricted by what happened. But my point is, now in that particular situation, there was that opportunity. The America is a different country. The value system is different over there. See, in general, Eastern countries, what happens, whatever the authority figure, the scales of justice are more tilted toward the authority. So in the West, it is whoever is not the authority, the scales of justice are more tilted towards that. America is among the few countries where everybody can have guns. And their idea is, it's not that we need guns to protect ourselves from thieves. We need guns to protect ourselves from the government. Because their memory is, British had colonized them and they had to fight against, the war against independence was against the British. So they say, if the government becomes tyrannical, so what happened to the Jews in Nazi Germany? That can never happen to us. So that's why not only can they have guns, they say we should have guns as good as the police or the military have. Now that has, of course, unwanted consequences. But my point is that the value system is different. So our Shakti may be dependent on our context. And so was my father wrong in what he did? Could he have sued the doctor? Maybe he could have. Now, it's not that necessarily when we are trying to do our best, each person may assist, each person may assess what is the best way I can serve Krishna in this situation. What is the best way I can do my dharma in this situation? So, for my parents, their dharma was okay. Do you want to spend time in going to courts? Or do you want, okay, now this has happened. What can we do to take care of it? So, I have some mobility at least. Sometimes some people who had no mobility. They did a lot of therapy and other things for me to at least have that much mobility. So, it is that Krishna's plan can work through different lanes. That it is not that only if we made a particular choice, that means only we are doing Krishna's plan. If we are not doing a particular choice, we are not part of Krishna's plan. Say we are trying to do a program at a particular place and people are not coming over there. So should we think that, oh, Krishna's plan is I should keep going over here? Maybe not. It depends. Some people say, oh, we'll keep going on over here. Eventually people will come. Somebody else will say, people are not valuing this over here. Let's go to some other locality where people will value us more. That's also fair enough. So this way, when we have this understanding of certainty and curiosity, we can become more open. Okay, I may choose to act in a particular way. Somebody else may choose to act in a different way. But we all can be having that mood of serving Krishna. Ultimately, Krishna is the well-wisher of everyone. And that means Krishna wants each one of us to improve our situations. But improve our situation in a mood of service to Him. Sometimes we can improve our situation simply by just improving our consciousness, our disposition. Sometimes we can improve our situation by actually confronting and correcting the situation around us. It depends. But whichever choice we make, it is not that one choice is necessarily right and one choice is necessarily wrong. Broadly, if we are maintaining our attitude to serve Krishna, if we are trying to connect with Krishna through the practices of bhakti, we are doing our sadhana, we are coming in satsang, we are doing our puja, that's what keeps us connected with Krishna. And if we are connected with Krishna, after that, whatever specific we do, we may have a huge amount of Shakti, we may not have a huge amount of Shakti. But Krishna remains always the bigger reality for us. So for us, the transformation, see initially what happens for us? Let me complete this. So initially for us, initially what happens for us? The world is big and God is small. That means, okay, God exists, He doesn't exist, God matters, doesn't matter. When I started practicing bhakti, I started sharing about bhakti with all my friends and relatives. And so one of my uncles said, I have a very good relationship with God. I said, really? I'd never seen him go to a temple, I had never seen him read any sacred books, even talk about God. I asked him, what is the nature of this good relationship? He said, mutual non-interference. God is happy there, I am happy here. So we may think that I don't care for God at all. But as we grow spiritually on the path of spiritual growth, what happens for us is the world becomes smaller and Krishna becomes bigger for us. So that's why for us, when this happens, that the specific choice I make in the world, whether I stay in this job or I take up another job, whether I have a house here or have a house there, whether I act in this way in this relationship or act in that way in that relationship. Now, all these are important choices, but they are not the most important choices. For us, when we are connected with Krishna, when we are practicing our bhakti, when Krishna becomes the bigger reality, we can deal with the practical realities in our life in a graceful way. So basically, when we are transforming, it is not just an outer transformation about how we deal with our situation. It's an inner transformation of how Krishna becomes bigger for us through the practice of bhakti. So broadly speaking, going back to this now, I'll conclude this, that if we consider these 4 quadrants, which is the worst quadrant, do you think? So that is quadrant 2. How many think quadrant 2 is the worst? Okay. Anybody else? Any quadrant? First, yes. Why? We can? Yes, exactly. So you could say that Duryodhan was in this quadrant. Dhritarashtra was in this quadrant. Isn't it? You can say Dhritarashtra had some physical Shakti. He also had a very powerful physique. He tried to crush Bhima at one time. But overall, he was weak. He didn't have much strength. So, in one sense, what happens is if we have Shakti without Bhakti, we can be destructive. If we have no Shakti, we have no Bhakti, then we are largely ineffective. We may want to do bad things, but we cannot do much bad things. Now, if we have Bhakti but no Shakti, then we are often under-effective. Under-effective means, yes, there is an effect in terms of internally we will stay connected with Krishna. Internally we are confident. But Srila Prabhupada, when he was in India, his words did not have much impact for various reasons. People did not take him seriously for the first 30, 40 years when he was in 1920 to 1965. So he was under-effective. But then, when he went to the West, people were inspired, people took up bhakti, and then he came back. He was super effective. So we would like to be in quadrant 4, but even if we can't be in quadrant 4, quadrant 3 is also okay. In some phase of our life, we will be in quadrant 3, some phase will be in quadrant 4. But what we don't want is, we don't want to be in these two quadrants. That where we get so obsessed with getting Shakti that we lose our Bhakti. We may think that if I have more money, I'll be able to do so much more service to Krishna. I'll have so much more peace of mind. I'll have so much less anxiety. Possible. But it could be that in the pursuit, that if we have more money, we may get more infatuated by that money. And we may think, thank you, Krishna, for the money. Bye-bye. That can also happen. So we don't know. So we can pursue Shakti. There's no problem with that. But we don't pursue Shakti at the cost of Bhakti. So with Shakti is more, you could say, about changing our situation at the material level. Bhakti is about changing our conception about what is more important. Our material situation is important, but our Krishna connection is even more important. And if we are connected with Krishna, materially, whatever situation we are in, we are still a part of Krishna's plan. So in this way, we can go through life, and through whatever we are going through life, we can keep moving closer to Krishna. And that is the broad, you could say, the plan that Krishna reveals for our life. Let me summarize what we discussed today. I started by talking about how prayers can also be a way in which we approach Krishna based on the Gita. And I talked about Gita wisdom through prayers. So I talked about 3 main points. What was the acronym? ACT. So A was what? Appreciate. So in appreciate, we discussed about how the Gita's conception of God and our conception of us. So it is not just that God is the protector and we are the recipient. We are the receiver. Rather, God is the commander and we are the participator. We are the active agent. We ourselves are meant also to be provider of protection. We receive protection. So this is one conception, but this is a more accurate conception. Krishna wants us to play active role in his plan. And then we discussed about how the story we tell ourselves in our life, it is about what happens to us, what is done to us, done by us. We can have resentment and we can have regret. But instead, we understand that Krishna is our life story, it's Krishna's plan is there above. So whatever happens to us is God filtered. God filtered means that we talked about the divine GPS. That Krishna has an array of plans. And whatever we do, whatever actions we make, they can be a part of Krishna's plan. I talked about how Krishna used even Duryodhana's defiance in Krishna's plan. So God filtered means that there could be God's intention. So the Pandavas were doing Krishna's intention and that was a part of Krishna's plan. And Duryodhana was defying the Pandavas and that was also a part of Krishna's plan. So we discuss how Krishna is the ultimate Jugad master. Isn't it? So Krishna can use that whatever resources are available, like a good commander, okay, this weapon is not there, use that weapon. So like that, Krishna uses whatever it is there. Appreciate that we are always a part of Krishna's plan. So then we discuss C was cultivate. We cultivate our part in Krishna's plan. So appreciate that Krishna's plan is there. How do we cultivate our part? We avoided 2 extremes. One is ego, the other is insecurity. Insecurity is that I am so worthless that I can never have a part in Krishna's plan. Ego is Krishna is lucky to have me in his team. So one is I know nothing, I know everything. In between is I know some things. So the humility is that humility leads to it is like a humble curiosity we talked about. That there is, for a devotee, there is certainty that Krishna has a plan and a place for me in his plan. And there is uncertainty about what exactly is the plan. But that uncertainty doesn't have to lead to fear or anxiety. For a devotee, that uncertainty leads to curiosity. Because we are on a foundation that whatever happens, Krishna is there for me. I am a part of Krishna's plan. So Srila Prabhupada was confident that there are temples, but he was also curious. Okay, I don't know whether to turn left or right. So in this way, we cultivate our part. So we cultivate our part by understanding that at one level, Krishna has a plan for me. We discussed how the plan of Krishna is not like a thin, narrow line. It is more like a broad direction. Krishna doesn't want us to give up our individuality or free will. Krishna wants us to use that in his service. So it's more like a broad direction. And the last T was what? Transform. So transform means once we are confident that Krishna has a part for us, how do we function? So we use our Shakti, like a warrior who is a part of an army. Okay, I'll fight this battle. But if this is not working, I'll fight this. So we discussed about this combination of Shakti and Bhakti for us. So the transformation is external in terms of whether we evolve, we evaluate whether I have Shakti or I don't have Shakti. So Draupadi in the gambling match was in this situation. Arjuna in the Kurukshetra battlefield was in this situation. Duryodhan most of his life was in the situation of having Shakti but no Bhakti. Dhritarashtra was in the situation. Now we don't have to be in one of the quadrants all the time. We can vary. So I discussed about, say, the medical negligence leading to problems in India. We may accept that. Okay, this is how it is. In America, we may say, no, we're going to fight it. It's not that one is right, other is wrong. It is that we move forward with whatever Shakti we have in our particular situation. So transformation is that we act according to Shakti that we have. But transformation also is that we, through our Bhakti, understand that actually, initially though the world may seem very big for us and God may seem small, eventually it is God who becomes big and the world becomes small for us. But this is the key transformation that happens through us, through our spiritual practices, through our spiritual growth. So we want to transform both in terms of we want to increase our Bhakti and we want to increase our Shakti. But increasing our Bhakti is more important. And based on that, we find out how best I can function in my particular place. And that way, through whatever we are going through in life, we can be growing toward Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
It's very too late to take questions. Should we take one question?
Yeah, one.
We have time for just one question. So, someone would like to ask Prabhuji. Who will have the privilege to ask Prabhuji one question? Nobody has any question.
Prabhuji went to give up like 2 quadrants care thinking that you should cry. And anyone said that you should be the best. More than 3 or 4. So when do we actually understand that? What is the Krishna's plan? So do I do this?
See, I don't think, we should worry about so much about what is Krishna's plan. We should focus more on how can I best serve in this situation. See, Krishna's plan for us is more like a principle. As I said, it's not a certainty. See, if Krishna had wanted it to be like that, Krishna could have revealed the plan to us. Otherwise, we make Krishna almost like diabolical. Necessarily follow my plan, but you can't know my plan. How am I meant to follow it then? It's not like that for us. So we can see how best can I serve Krishna in this situation. So broadly speaking, sometimes, say, we see some injustice happening somewhere. Like when I travel across the world, many devotees, whether in their corporate world, they feel and my boss is abusive, or maybe they are in a family situation, their extended family, some member is troubling them a lot, or sometimes even the devotee community, sometimes they may feel that something is not happening right, that okay, this thing is not going right, this thing is not going right, that we will all see many things which are not going right for us. Not just for us, in general they're not going right. So how do we decide? So basically the principle is that we have to think of our guna and our karma. Guna karma vibhagasha. So guna refers to our disposition and karma refers to our position. So what does this mean? Say if somebody is the police, as I was talking with one devotee, he is in the American army, and when he became a devotee at that time, he said, I don't want to get involved in these wars. So he was supposed to go to Iraq. So he talked with his spiritual master, and spiritual master said, no, if you are in the army, that's what your job is, then you need to go do your duty over there, because that's what your calling is, that's your dharma over there. If you decide you don't want to be a part of the army, that's a different thing. But if we are taking something, if we are taking a salary and we are expected to perform a particular role, then we have to do that. So if there are riots going on in the city and the police are deputed to stop the riots, the police can't say, I don't want to be involved in this. No, that's your dharma. So we have to first look at our position. If somebody is has a position to make a change, and that's what is expected of them, then they have to do that. So, if we are at home and we are a parent and two of our kids are fighting with each other, and we really keep fighting, two of you settle it. No, maybe the bigger kid will just beat the smaller kid back and live. No, we have to intervene over there. Now, if two kids are playing in a park and we don't know those kids, now we may say still we don't want them to fight. That's okay. But here at home, it's our responsibility. So first is, what is our karma? What is our role? What is our position? So one of the most frustrating things for devotees is when somebody takes on a material position, but then gives a philosophical response. Like say after this program, say somebody is in kitchen in charge, and say you go for prasad, and they say actually there's no prasad today, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. That we heard in the class. Isn't it? So if that's all that you are going to say, then don't be kitchen in charge. Isn't it? If you're going to take a particular position, then you have to do what is expected of the position. Now, sometimes we may say sometimes we are given a position, but we are not given any empowerment for the position. Then we may decide whether I want to stay in that position or I don't want to stay in that position. So sometimes the empowerment also increases with time. So my point is that if we are taking a position, then it's not really a choice for us. We have to do what we can. But if you're not taken that position, so Krishna tells Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya. You have lived in royalty. And you have taken royal privileges. Now it is the time to give it back to society. Now you cannot say, oh, these are my relatives, so I won't fight against them. You have to do your part. So one is the position. The other is the disposition. The disposition means, like I gave the example of two kids in the park fighting. Now we may decide, I want to intervene. I don't want these kids to fight. Somebody may decide, no, I'll just find out who their parents are, and I'll inform the parents. Somebody will say, no, okay, their parents will find them. I don't want to get involved. Now that is individual disposition. So we may decide. So in that case, we may have to decide, what is it that helps us to best live with ourselves? Sita told Jatayu. Sita is not just like a weak woman. She is also Kshatrayani. As soon as she saw Jatayu, she assessed that Jatayu will not be able to fight against Ravan. So she told him, please, Jatayu, please help me, but please don't fight against Ravan. Just inform Ram that Ravan has abducted. So now Jatayu felt that she is like my daughter. Now, he had that mood. He was Dashrath's friend. He said, how can I live with myself if I just passively watch her being abducted? So now he fought. And he fought heroically. He fought like never before in his life. And actually Ravana did not really win gracefully. It was he won, they say winning ugly this way. Winning ugly means what? He could not get the better of Jatayu based on skill or ability. But it was just he tired Jatayu out. And he just kept fighting and dodging Jatayu's attacks till Jatayu got tired. And then he lopped off his wings. So there, did what? Can we say that what Jatayu did was a mistake? No, it's his disposition. Now, to his credit, he maintained his life so that what Sita had told him to do, inform Ram, he did inform Ram also. But it's a disposition. So, so sometimes in particular situation, somebody may decide that, okay, this is what I am not going to do. Now, when Draupadi was being dishonored, the Pandavas stayed silent. Now, there are some South Indian Sri Vaishnava commentators, they say that actually even the Pandavas did adharma over there. Because they prioritized Dasya Dharma over Pati Dharma. So Dasya Dharma is, we have lost everything, we are servants, we are like the slaves of the Kauravas now. So we have to listen to our masters. But does that mean that a master can do anything with the servant? That the servant have no rights, have no dignity at all? So that is so. But what happened was that whole situation unfolded in such a way that they just couldn't figure out which is the right thing to do at that time. So it was they chose that action. Would they have chosen it again in future? Maybe, maybe not. So, but they felt that we have lost everything, and this is the honorable way to act right now. The honorable way is that, okay, we have lost, and we accept that we have lost. So, life is difficult, and that's why it's not very easy to determine. So, according to one's disposition at that time, Bhima wanted to fight, but Yudhishthira said no. Wait. So it will be according to our disposition, whether we want to keep fighting. And so now, how do you know what is the disposition? See, the test of if somebody has a disposition is of fighting to change the situation is that although fighting is going to create complexity, fighting is going to create anxiety, fighting is going to create exhaustion. But at the end of the day, they will feel more content having fought and failed rather than having not tried at all. But there can be perfectly valid other set of people who may say that I just don't want to get involved in this. So, Vidura chose to stay with Dhritarashtra for so long because he felt that Dhritarashtra was not lost forever without any hope. So that was his decision. My point here is that it's not again one thing. Disposition means what is the best way we can function? What is the best way we think we can serve Krishna? Vidura stayed with Dhritarashtra, but when he was driven out by Duryodhan, he did not go over to the Pandavas because he still had hope that Dhritarashtra could be saved. And he knew that if he would be the part of the army that would kill Dhritarashtra's sons, then Dhritarashtra would never listen to him. Because Dhritarashtra's main grouse was not that Vidura was not his well-wisher. Dhritarashtra's main grouse was that Vidura was his well-wisher, but Vidura was not the well-wisher of his son. And for him, like he had some affection towards Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra had some affection towards Vidura, but his affection towards Duryodhan was more. So once Duryodhan was removed from his life, Vidura came back. And Dhritarashtra listened to Vidura. And he was elevated after that. On the other hand, Vibhishan, when he left Ravan, he didn't just go on pilgrimage. He went to the side of Ram. Why? Because there, Ravan was not a victim. Ravan was not a victim. Ravan was not a weak person attached to somebody who was wicked. Ravan was himself the wicked person. There was no chance of reforming Ravan. So, how we deal with situations, that's why it's dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. What is the right thing to do? That is complicated. and Mahajano yena gataha sapantha. When we look carefully at the lives of the characters in the scriptures, and we see what kind of decisions they have made, that helps us not necessarily get a clear reference point, this is what I should do, but that helps us to develop our own innate compass. And with that compass, we decide how best to move ahead in our life. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Itai Gaur Premanandi.